Welcome and thank you for listening. The preceding video contained proof of the chaos theory and the Collett's conjecture solved. We also provided biblical text that was used to unlock both equations. Now we will proceed by recognizing the non-truths contained within the science of mathematics to prove the absolute truth within the Old Testament. Please recognize that we said the absolute truth within the Old Testament. We recognize that the Old and New Testament were written by people that translated from the negative first perspective. Therefore, the scribes introduced non-truths. These non-truths have been added during each revision after subsequent generations. We know majority of the non-truths entered were unintentional. The scribes had the purest intentions and translated their own perception of truth, taught to them by previous generations. Please allow us to reiterate, these non-truths entered into sacred texts within all religions are not the fault of the scribes. They were simply doing the best they could with the information they had been taught. This is why we have concentrated our focus on the exact words of God, numbers referenced, and locations mentioned within the Bibles. By doing so, we reduce the amount of emotional perception, adulterating the absolute truths contained within the Bibles. We will use historical writings, archaeological evidence, and thermal imagery to prove the presence of divine spirit within. We cannot tell anyone what to believe, but we can prove to you with evidence and give you the ability to make a conscious decision. Please remember, once you are aware of absolute truth, you no longer have the defense of ignorance. If you watch this video and choose to deny the spirit within, then you have made a conscious decision. At that point, we will respect your choice and direct our energy towards those seeking the absolute truth. We are doing this video out of pure love for all of the good within humanity. If you're like us, then you prefer to recognize each word at a slower rate. You can do so by clicking on the settings option within YouTube. This will give you the ability to slow down the video and select subtitles in any mother tongue spoken on earth. If you choose to do so, you will realize that the video was not created by AI, but instead by a real person who cares about your well-being. We thank YouTube for providing us with this ability. Please allow us to begin. The first historical evidence of mathematics is the Lubombo bones containing 29 notches. It is written that it may have been used as lunar phase counter, in which African women used these bones to keep track of menstrual cycles. If this is true, then African women would be considered the first recorded mathematicians. Please stop and think. Mathematics is considered the universal language of the world. Therefore, mathematical wisdom within our minds links us all together since the beginning of existence. Science will tell you that the Lubombo bones are approximately 42,000 years old, but please remember, in the previous video, we proved how delusional science is compared to reality. Now we look at the first book of the Old Testament, and that is the book of Genesis. The first time mathematics measurement was mentioned was when God told Noah to build the ark, using the same type of measuring device as the first evidence of mathematics. This measuring device is referred to as the cubit, the link between the elbow and the tip of your middle finger. But science will have you believe that the use of the cubit was over 42,000 years ago. So now we need to recognize if there is any more connection between Noah, African women, and the history of mathematics that can narrow down the truths within science. If we simply look at the first recorded use of the number 0, we realize that it is written. The first recorded 0 appeared in Mesopotamia around 3 BC. So if we look at how Mesopotamia related to the Old Testament, we realize that in Genesis, Abraham, Cain, Abel, and numerous other biblical figures were born in Mesopotamia, not long after the great flood of Noah. Simple biblical research tells Abraham, a descendant of Noah through the son of Shem, was married to Sarai, and she was an African woman. Please stop and reflect. How can it be coincidence that the Old Testament, the first use of measurement, the history of mathematics, the use of a cubit, the time and location history of the number 0, and the marriage of Abraham and Sarai all make full circle to confirm each other within human existence? The truth is, there is no coincidence in reality, only absolute truth. All absolute truth can be found if you are only willing to accept the positive within our existence. All of the truths have been right in front of us. We have simply not been able to see them until now. Please stop and think. The world is changing dramatically within all aspects. The war in Israel, the war in Ukraine, every country in the world is picking sides. The countries that have promoted freedom of speech are now using their own forces to stifle the ones they swore to defend. World hunger is at an alarming rate. The world has witnessed a tenfold increase in the number of natural disasters since the 1960s, alarming worldwide decline in mental health, and the list goes on and on. All we need to do is open our eyes and be willing to accept the truths. Now we will share with you an example of opening your eyes and seeing the truth. These videos were taken with a thermal camera. Trent was meditating, feeling only pure love within his soul. He did not realize what he had captured until 10 days later. The world has had access to these videos for over a year, yet nobody is conscious enough to recognize what they have witnessed. In the first video, you'll notice as Trent was preparing to meditate, and as he starts entering into a deep meditative state, you see his energy begin to leave his body and hover behind. The only thing he experienced while he was meditating was at one point he was able to see himself from behind. The second video shows the energy re-entering his body, and he quit meditating because his dog nudged him, fearful that he was dead. And then the last video shows the silhouette that was left on the bed, even though he never laid down. We cannot tell you what to believe. All we can do is try to show you the truths so that you can make your own conscious decision.